Hello everyone, I am very excited to share project updates for the Raspberry Pi Kubernetes cluster project. Today I'm going to be taking you on a tour, and my next video is going to be a full-on demonstration, screen capping and taking video of a particular thing that I'm going to talk about. So anyways, this is a tour video, so let's just hop right into the tour. Here you go, splayed out in front of you are all the elements to the project so far. So you can see power, computer, SD card, Raspberry Pis, a switch, and a Wi-Fi router. So I'm going to talk about in detail each of these elements now. So here's the Wi-Fi router. It is by Good Life. It is the AR750 Wi-Fi router, super portable, super awesome, and it provides two networks. One, the Wi-Fi network, and two, a physical network. So physical network I'm going to talk about now. Here's the network cable connecting to a 8-port switch by TP-Link. So the black network cable connects the Wi-Fi router to the switch, and then you can see that there are 6 blue Cat5e cables, each connecting to a corresponding Raspberry Pi. So you can see 6 Raspberry Pis here, 5 of which on the right are in a server rack configuration, and the last one is a touchscreen Raspberry Pi, so it's off, it's separate, it's on its own. But you can see that there is a physical connection to the Cat5e. So it's at this point that I'm going to talk about network interfaces on the Raspberry Pi, and then I'm going to talk about the network administration element of this project. So network interfaces. Each Raspberry Pi has at least 2 network interfaces. One is the network interface for the physical connection. The other is the network interface for the Wi-Fi network communication. So there are radios on the Wi-Fi router, there are radios on the Raspberry Pi, and they can basically connect to either a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network or a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi network. So it's at this point that I'm going to describe how each network interface has its own corresponding MAC address. What can you do with those MAC addresses? Well, I'm glad you asked, because what you can do is the network administration element of this project. You can set up IP address reservations for each MAC address, and that will allow you to talk to or have static IP addresses for each network interface. So how many IP address reservations would you make? Well, because I said the Raspberry Pi has at least 2 network interfaces, and each network interface has its own MAC address, and there are 6 Raspberry Pis, you would make 12 IP address reservations. And that is exactly what I've done. So, okay, let's move on. Why do you need the physical network? I mean, like, why not just connect through the Wi-Fi network? I mean, why even worry about network interfaces and MAC addresses and IP address resolutions and whatever? Well, that brings me to the 10 SD cards that I have configured over here. So these are 10 SD cards. Each SD card is flashed with a Raspbian Lite operating system. The only other thing that I've done besides flashing it is adding a SSH empty file to enable SSH on the Raspberry Pis. But that doesn't really explain why there's a physical network. So once you plug those SD cards in, the Raspberry Pi loads or boot loads or whatever, and it sees that the blank SSH file is there, so it turns on SSH. So what I can do is I can connect my computer to the Wi-Fi network, and then I can see all the IP addresses that correspond to the physical connection. What I can do with those IP addresses is I can SSH into each Raspberry Pi, and then I can set up each Raspberry Pi to talk with the Wi-Fi network. So how do you do that? You basically provide the Wi-Fi network name and the Wi-Fi network password, and then the Raspberry Pis will be able to speak on the Wi-Fi network. Once you do that, and that's what I call initial setup, initial configuration. So once you do that initial configuration of each of the Raspberry Pis, you can then lose the physical network by unplugging that cable from the Wi-Fi router to the switch, and then, obviously just taking it out, unplugging each cable from the Raspberry Pis, and then, the Raspberry Pis are basically pretty portable at that point. All subsequent configuration can happen over the Wi-Fi network. And one particular configuration that I've written for this project is to set up a Kubernetes cluster involving worker nodes and master nodes, setting that up using K3s, which is 5 less than K8s, and K8s is just short for Kubernetes. So anyways, that configuration happens over the Wi-Fi network instead of the physical network. So yeah, that brings me to a planned demonstration. So what I'm going to do is take these fresh Raspberry or Raspbian Lite operating systems and then configure them to be a Kubernetes network with 1 master and 5 workers, and then show using a plugin on an IDE that the actual Raspberry Pi Kubernetes cluster, and kind of go through like what is all set up on that cluster. Yeah, well, I hope some people find this interesting. And yeah, I will see you guys later. Ta-ta for now.